welcome to today's tea time. I'm very excited to get into this one because it's a bunch of business chat, and I know you guys are always really interested in Moonflower Child things and just life, being an entrepreneur and running our own businesses and being self-employed. So let's get into it. I thought I would also give you a really quick life update because it's been a minute, I feel like, since I've sat down to really talk with you guys. Wow, I don't even know where to begin. Life has been crazy. We have been doing a bunch of renovations. There's been people, as you know, coming in and out of the house just non-stop. They finished the entire upstairs, which is really exciting. They've pulled out the toilet and they've been working on repairing some of the plumbing and the subfloor that is where the toilet was kind of lopsided a bit. We've been going back and forth between the bus and the house and the bus and the house. And just this past weekend, Justin took Red Pepper out for a guy's trip down to Charlotte. They went to do some disc golfing and took Odin as well, so it was a proper dude's trip. Since we were living in the bus, I had to move our things back into the bedroom and set it up and get it ready to live in once again, at least just this bedroom space. And we don't have a kitchen now because they demoed the kitchen downstairs and new kitchen is still not finished yet. And so yeah, we've been kind of working using the bathroom sinks and the bathtubs as our sinks and places to wash dishes, as well as outside. It's definitely been crazy. If you've had work done on your house and lived in your house at the same time, then you probably know what I'm talking about, but it's definitely been very chaotic. Pray for us. We need definitely some good juju coming our way because we've been losing our minds lately. Overall, I think we're all in good spirits this week, and having some time away from each other and all that was definitely something that we needed. So it's been good. We had a proper girls' weekend, me, Mackenzie and Zay, and I'll be sharing a whole video about that next week. And that also includes a lot of what I did this past weekend, which was painting Azalea's bedroom. So that was so much fun, and it's still not finished and needs a bit more work, but I'll be sharing the progress with you guys next week, so that'll be fun to see what's kind of coming along. Life update over. Today I'm having a delicious tea. Thank you, Lisa. It's a Young Living blend, and if you guys had noses and can smell this, it's so good. It's spicy and a little bit cinnamony and a bit more like of an apple cidery kind of flavor, and reminds me actually of the apple cider that she made for us whenever we went to go and visit. It was delicious. I'm glad you made it down to Florida, by the way. Shout out to Lisa and Matt. You guys are awesome. They are newbie au pairs and are having a baby down in Florida this year. So yeah, they went on their first big adventure and I'm excited for them. So I'm going to be drinking this tea in this really cute cup that I got along with this badass cooker. I want to give a big shout out to Bideen because they're sponsoring today's tea time, which is really awesome. This is a mini kettle cooker, and it's basically this really awesome little unit that you can use to do all kinds of things. Their core mission is to create products that are like around wellness and convenience and design. It's great for making tea and even food. This one's really awesome because it has two settings. So it has a cook mode and a boil mode, and you can basically set your time for what it is that you're cooking. So from tea to noodles, boiling eggs, making stews and putting meat inside there. That's really easy solution to having it in a small home space where you don't have a cooker. And like right now we don't have a kitchen, and so it's just so nice to be able to quickly throw something in here, make a pot of noodles or make some tea and just like easily clean it out. We've been trying to avoid having dishes, so that's also really nice to just like do it all in here. And you can use it as like, you know, a teapot and pour out, or you can just drink it like straight from here as like an actual cup, and it's got a really comfortable handle to hold on to. The other thing that's really great about it, it's electric, so you can just throw it in your bag, take it with you for a weekend away, for a hotel stay, for your camping trips, whatever you need. It's really convenient, I guess, to just have with you all the time for quick and easy meals to be cooked. It has a few fancy smart technology, I guess you could say, like it remembers your previous settings, so all you have to do is press the on button and it'll already start doing what you did last time. It automatically knows if you've put like room temperature or cold water inside there, and it'll immediately start boiling your water, so it's sort of like time efficient, I guess. But I've really enjoyed using it. It's just really handy to have it up here in the bedroom with my small selection of tea and just be able to cook tea or a quick meal, boil an egg, whatever it is that I need, and just have it right here on the windowsill. So if you guys are interested in exploring some of Bidene's products, you can go check them out in the link in the description down below and see what sort of appliances you might be able to have in your home. They're really cute and have lots of different color options, and it's just nice to be able to have quality appliances that, you know, work well for your lifestyle and are efficient. Big thank you to Bidene for sponsoring today's video. I really appreciate you guys, and the tea is delicious. Oh buddies, so you guys know that Moonflower Child is reopening, I'm sure by now, and I've officially finished rebranding. I've been working hard behind the scenes on putting together a new website, as well as finalizing the details with like the color, typeface, and all the little details that come with creating a brand. I'm really excited that we are now also in the final stages of the coloring book that I've been working on for so long. And I say we because I mean my graphic designer and I, Kate. She's been helping in a really amazing way to kind of bring this thing to life, and I received my sample this past weekend while we were having our girl weekend, which was really, really cool to be holding this thing in person. It's still not quite done and needs a lot of different edits within it now that I see it like hard copy. So that's always a part of the process, you know, seeing things like these little icons. There's sort of like a print error, I guess, around them. It wasn't quite an invisible image, so that shows up on the print. Things like that, and then little things that I haven't confirmed with my editor to kind of like expand that to have it be a full section of this page, to be able to kind of incorporate coloring in all ways of this coloring book. I wanted it to feel very much like a doodle book where you can kind of color in on these pages. There's some like affirmations in text that you can color in, and obviously all the workbook pages and pointers and tips and things that I've learned all along the way to kind of help my mindset and mental health be at its best. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. I'm just giving you, I guess, a sneak peek of what it looks like all on the inside and all the progress that we have made. This has been a long time coming. For a while now I've wanted to make a coloring book, so to see this thing in person is a really cool feeling. I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you guys, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've been putting into this, Kate. Yeah, if you guys want to be in the loop for when it's officially for sale, or find out about any pre-releases and extra like bonus things that you could get, I'm working on putting together something special for you guys. Feel free to add your name to the email list, which is on the moonflowerchild.com website, so feel free to check that out, and I can't wait to share that with you guys. So there's been some amazing progress on that front, and it includes all the new branding, and it just feels really good to be completing a really exciting project. Anyways, onwards. Since you guys are always asking me the questions about my business and everything, that the best way to find out your questions for this video was to throw out some Q&A stuff on Instagram. So a lot of you guys reached out with some amazing questions, and I'm really excited to get into it. But first I thought I'd show you this amazing armoire. This is my official office, which will eventually be in the green room. Yeah, I'm excited. It's a space for my computer and all my photography gear to go in here. I have my essential oils and some knickknacks and details of things that I just like love having around that are spiritual and kind of fragile, so I keep them up and out the way of things that might go wrong. But yeah, I've been really enjoying sitting here and working at this desk. So if you guys are getting emails from me or wondering where I'm at, I'm probably sitting here at my little desk. Yeah, lately it's been rough because I've been having to like pack up all my gear, and with all the hard drives and the wires and everything, it just takes so much time to like put it all together and then break it all down and all the stuff. I'm also like away from the workers, so I can have some privacy, sit here and film and just connect with you guys. Shout out to everyone who gave me questions. Thank you so much for all your thoughts and everything that you want to know. Really appreciate all of you guys. And I'm going to kind of generalize the questions so that hopefully I can get all of the questions answered, because some of them were multiples of the same concept, I guess. So the first question that I wanted to get into was how to start. Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I make a business a happening thing? My first thought would be, what is it that you want to do? Like, what do you want your business to be? Is it retail? Is it a service? Is it a product? Is it an online course, or is it hosting events? Also, I'm gonna generalize speaking about retail because that's really where I've had a lot of my knowledge and opportunity in. So yeah, if you're thinking retail, like, are you shipping the product yourself? Are you doing drop shipping? Or are you being like an in-person shop where you're gonna have to pay rent for a space and like have customers come to you? What is it that you're gonna sell? What's the product? Is it body products? Is it clothing? Is it home goods? Is it books? Is it, I don't know, shoes? Is it all kinds of stuff, light fixtures, so many things that you could be selling, but just keeping that in mind, like whether it's fragile or compact, how big it is. These are all aspects of things that you're gonna have to think about if you are shipping product. What's really important to consider is like, where is your product or service or whatever it is that you're making your business around fitting within a gap in the market? And that's probably the most important thing. So how much money to put into your business to start? That's a real tricky question because it kind of just depends like what you have available. I started Moonflower Child honestly from the ground up. I was making product from what money I had available to buy materials that I would then make into something that I would then sell, that then would give me increase in profit from the product that I sold to be able to buy more raw goods and materials to be able to make more things to then sell, and then you kind of continue that cycle of growing organically. Otherwise, if you have like a little reserve of funds, then by all means, like, it just depends how big of a launch or what kind of launch you want to do, whether it's pay for marketing, which can be quite expensive, or pay for like manufacturing of goods, which also you need minimum quantities to consider. Is it one item that you're selling? Is it multiple different designs in different colors and different cuts? Because then your price points for production are also going to be slightly different. So it kind of just depends what it is that you're trying to do in your initial launch for the product. Are you also going to be selling on Etsy or your own website? There's sort of different platforms and different rates of fees that you have to pay and different apps that you'll need to integrate, and like MailChimp or any type of email service provider. But really at the end of the day, it's up to you how much bulk money you'd want to put in up front. I would say initially for sure have enough for a website and your first round of product, whether it's like 1 or 2 items or like 500 or 1,000 or 10,000. Finding vendors. This was so fun for me. I didn't realize how much enjoyment I had being someone who sourced the product that was being sold on Moonflower Child whenever I started selling wholesale, or I was selling retail but like buying wholesale. I was originally finding like dead stock fabrics and sourcing my raw goods from stores that were like thrifty and secondhand, so I was saving my money there, and then I started producing one-off items and then selling in person and online, and that was loads of fun. But also you have to keep in mind the difference between buying product that's already made and then just like taking photos and posting it on your website and then selling it, or doing production where you're like creating the design, finding someone to help you make it, or you making it, having it made, and then like getting it shipped to you, or like managing to have your own employee help you make it, or maybe you're the only one making it. Those are kind of things to think about with production, is if you're hiring someone or if you're going to seek a production house out and have them produce it. If you do decide to go with not like in-house production, which would be like you or someone within your team directly here, and sort of source from out of house, then there's things to consider with minimum quantities. Are you hoping to do small runs or big runs of whatever product it is that you're hoping to make? How much does it cost? Shipping it, samples, the time of how long it takes for like, you know, the sample to come to you, and then communication from afar can be tricky. These are all things that you'd have to consider, but that's always a really fun route if you're more in the designer kind of mindset and you want to be the one creating the vision for what the clothing or product is that you're making or having made for your business. The other option is to do wholesale, which would be to buy the product below retail value, and you could source from brands directly. You could reach out to makers and any type of person that you know is someone who is doing production. Send them an email and be like, I own this business, we are an online retail store or maybe in-person retail store. These are some of the brands that we carry, or this is the kind of style and branding of the business, like the vibe that we put out. Your product would fit really well with us. We would love to see if you'd be interested in selling wholesale. So yeah, you just reach out directly to the brands, maybe on Instagram, find websites of companies that you really like, reach out to them there. That can definitely be a bit harder. Bigger companies, obviously it's more tricky, but smaller, like mom and pop kind of shops are always more willing and open to kind of collaborate and come up with ways that you can buy their product to sell. Sometimes you could also consider doing consignment as a trial run for their product before purchasing wholesale. Consignment would be where basically they have their product within your space, online or in person, and when it sells and only when it sells do you then pay that consignor a certain amount, percentage probably, of what it is that sold. Versus wholesale, where normally there's a minimum quantity and you have to buy in bulk and get all this product, and then you're kind of stuck with it and have to really push it to sell it, otherwise you have like leftover stock, which at the end of the day is value just sitting there and not working for your business. So a few places that you can buy wholesale aside from contacting the brand directly is a company called Faire.com. You can buy wholesale there, as well as if you're a production person you can also sell wholesale there. And there's other wholesale websites you could literally just Google and find a ton. There's also trade shows that you can attend both as a maker or a buyer. Both of those are really great options if you're hoping to have bigger purchases and like larger or have larger minimum quantities. So that would be thoughts on finding vendors and buying and sourcing your product. Setting your prices. This is a tricky question because it took me a minute to get to what I wanted to get to with my business. So I really enjoyed finding a way to kind of put everything on spreadsheets, and I didn't used to be so into spreadsheets, but Justin has made me really appreciate them on another level. So I used to just use Google Sheets and throw everything on there and kind of use that as a way to calculate what my cost was going to be that I would then sell my product to my customers at. Basically, you consider your cost of goods as your baseline. So that's COG. Basically, that would be any of your raw materials. So for example, if I was making a shirt, it would be the amount of fabric, how much it cost per yarn, how much I used of that like amount, plus like the cost per button, the cost of thread, the time and the labor that went into it. I would need to consider any other batting or things that went underneath the collar or within the fabric where I'm folding it. Any other little details, maybe I'm dyeing it, how much does it cost for the dye? Anything that was used to make the product goes on your cost of goods section, and then you total that out. And once you total that out, that's your baseline, what you would need to sell just to break even on the product that you just made. So then you have to mark it up a certain amount, however much you want. Normally it's like, I don't know if it's 100 or 50%, I can never know the like language around it. But say for example, I made this shirt cost $10 to make. I'm gonna mark it up about $5. So wholesale cost would be about $15. But when you consider your markup, you have to consider like your website cost, your employee cost, your time and labor, your rental of the space that you're in, that you're making your product or housing your inventory or whatever it is. All the little payments that you're required to make in order to run and fund the day-to-day of your business. Those are things that would go within your markup, and you would have to sort of sit down and do calculations and figure all that stuff out so it makes sense for your business model, I guess. So once you have it marked up at wholesale price, let's say $15 for this one shirt, when I'm thinking about selling my product wholesale, in order for it to make sense, I would want to sell like at least 100 of those shirts at like $15 wholesale cost. But if I'm selling it retail, I would probably mark it up once again, which is what if you're doing as a business owner who's purchasing goods wholesale in bulk, you're buying all my shirts for $15 and you're now in a boutique business and you're wanting to sell those shirts, you have your business costs that you need to factor in. So you need to also mark up and add in your cost to rent the space, your labor, the time and all that stuff to take photos, and maybe you hire a photographer, your website, credit card fees need to be calculated in, and all that kind of stuff. There's all these things that then as a retail business owner you have to consider in your markup costs. And then above your markup cost, now you have your retail cost. There's also things like sales tax and state tax. There's out of country tax, or there's various taxes that you have to consider. Also, just generally your time, that's a really important one to factor in, all these different places where you could mark up your product cost. So at the end of the day, that's how you set your price. How you choose to gain in profit is up to you, because your markup includes your cost in running the business. You have to add within all of that at some point in each stage, like a certain amount that you want to be making in profit, which would be the money that comes back into your business that you can then utilize for future growth of the business. And that's also something that I was struggling with Moonflower Child. I couldn't keep up with the momentum of growth. I needed more of everything when I didn't have enough of everything. Being a business owner, you realize all these different stages of growth that are painful and difficult, and sometimes you need to make sacrifices to be able to have more profits, to be able to make a bigger investment in product, or in updating the website, or in marketing and hiring a photographer for a big promotional release. All these kinds of things are really important in keeping your in your mind as you kind of set your prices. Like, what opportunities do you want to be able to have and fund through your business, all of which have to be paid for by the product that you're selling to your customer. So selling your product to customers, whether it be at events or online, what have you. I started originally at events because I needed to gain momentum with exposure, to be able to meet people, to put my brand out there and have it be seen by even people who weren't going to be my customers. And honestly, I found that that was the best way to go. I really enjoyed it. It was like the time of my life where it was like my early to mid 20s up until like my late 20s. So for like 5 years I was packing up all my goods into totes and lugging them to events, setting up tents, and then eventually got the bus and kind of progressed, I guess, like that. I started at little markets locally just because it was cheaper and more affordable. So those kind of ranged between like $50 to $150 to set up for the day, maybe like a 5 to 8 hour kind of market pop-up. And you can find those online, like craft markets, fairs, any type of stuff like that, that allows you to purchase like a space at the event that's being hosted that you know is going to have people coming to, because they're responsible for marketing and outreach to the general public. I then eventually kind of grew my business and was able to start funding a bit more expensive expeditions for events, and those included like music festivals and bigger like long weekend events. Those ranged from probably about $800 to $2,000 depending on how big of a space you need. A 10 by 10 tent or a 10 by 20, which is what my bus fit in, kind of cost different. It just depends what your budget is, I guess, on that front, but that definitely became an expensive expense within the business. The important thing, I think, is to find the right market that you're gonna sell to your customer at. I realized many a times that I would go to certain events and it just wasn't where my customer was. My customer needed to be someone who could afford an item of clothing that ranged between $50 and $150, and then smaller knickknacks between like $5 to $35 or $50, I guess, on the cheaper end. I found my customer at yoga festivals instead of more music festivals. The music festival scene can be a bit more of a party scene and less so much people who are willing to spend their money on raw creator goods. yoga festivals I found are people who have a higher budget and are able to support creators in that way. The events that I was doing in Raleigh and in the Triangle area, I always did well, but I also found that my customer wasn't really here. She's not a bohemian woman as much as she is more like a hipster woman here. So it was always a little bit harder to find my customer. I did well, but I didn't do as good as I had in the past. So it's important to find your customer and kind of know where to go and where that sweet spot is for being able to sell your goods in person. The other thing that normally you have to do whenever you're applying to vend at an event is fill out an application on the website of the event that you're hoping to attend, and you should normally have a photo on how you're going to display your product. Is always really helpful. People want to know what your booth looks like to see if it's a good fit for the vibe that they're also trying to create, because sometimes events are trying to create a brand themselves per se, and they're hosting only creators that are minimal or like neutral colors, or more only for men or more only for women or what have you. So like it's helpful for the application to have a photo of your booth. So if you've never set up a space before, that's totally fine. Just find like a grassy field, bring all your gear, time yourself, because that's also really helpful to know like how long it takes for you to load the car up and take all your gear there, unload and set it up and all that stuff. Take a bunch of pictures of it and have that as like a backstock reserve of photos that you can use to apply for any events if it's just the first time that you're trying to attend. But yeah, generally I would say like 3 months ahead of time at least is when local events are posting that they have events that you should be applying for. Generally those also have fees for you to apply to, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Insurance. This was a real pain in my arse. Insurance for your own business is always important, whether you have body products and you don't want people like suing you for allergic reactions if you're the maker, or if you're selling product that somebody else made. It's important just to be covered. The other thing that's important is for like any stolen goods or lost goods, or just like, yeah, it depends what kind of coverage you're really looking for, but having business insurance is really important, especially if you're going to start vending out in the big world. A lot of the time they require you, especially with the bigger festivals, to have some sort of proof of insurance. The events that I used to attend also generally had a big umbrella insurance that would cover the cost of a vendor being there, but if there was any incidents that happened within the vendor's booth, that needed to be covered by their own insurance. Setting up, I already mentioned the time. It's so important to consider how much time goes into this. It would be about like, I don't know, 30-45 minutes of lugging all my stuff into the car, and then about like another hour once I arrived at the festival or event to unpack, set up, and then the event would happen for like 4 or 5 hours, and then you break down, put it back in your car, take it back home, unload your car. It's very time consuming, and in the process you can get damaged product, you can drop the box, and if you do pottery then you're screwed. The long hours are really exhausting. Sometimes you have to weather rainstorms and windstorms and really hot days, but at the end of the day you get to meet your customer face to face, you get your brand out there, you get productive feedback, things that people like. Helps you kind of to better understand what it is that your customer is liking about your business and what they're less interested in. So in general it's like customer research in a way. Yeah, I think if you're just starting out, would definitely be worth it. Just put yourself out there. It's a really great way to start, and the internet is so saturated now that it's difficult to kind of get your website seen, I guess, unless you know a lot about advertising and paid ads and things like that. I would definitely suggest doing that. If you're selling online, things to consider, there's a lot. And if you're doing both in person and online, then you have to obviously like balance the two worlds. But shipping or drop shipping like from your home or your office or warehouse, or are you having a warehouse ship the product for you and linking your website to their services or apps or whatever that allow them to then know what orders have been made so that they can pack and ship product? For our cookbook, we did drop shipping. They produce the product per order, so we don't have any money held in inventory. It's just made to order, and then they pack it and ship it. So we don't even touch the item. We see the orders come in and the warehouse takes care of it. So that's also like a load off of our back and allows us to be traveling and not in a space where we need to hold inventory. If you're shipping from your own home, then there's things to consider, like where are you going to put your inventory and how often are you going to ship, and do you have the time to do all this shipping? If you're making the product and shipping, it's going to be a lot. You'll have to consider what like packaging you're going to have, and also have stock of that so that when orders come in, you're ready to pack and ship orders. You don't want to be out of mailers or whatever and you have like a bunch of orders waiting to be mailed out. So you'll have to consider customer service, which no matter what kind of sales I guess you're doing, you'll have to have really great customer service. You want your customer to feel loved, appreciated, heard and understood. And after working in retail for so long, sometimes the customer drives you crazy, but at the end of the day, they have to be the one that is right, because you want them to leave feeling satisfied with their experience and not disappointed or upset or angry or with a bad taste in their mouth, because then you will lose them. And something that's really important about retail is having a current customer come back over and over and over, someone who's always going to come and buy from your shop. They'll always support you, they'll always come back to you. Getting someone to become that is a whole nother thing, because if you have a new customer that you are wanting to become a like consistent customer, you have to make them want to do the first purchase, and that can be a hurdle that is a lot bigger than you might realize. Customer service is definitely something to keep up with. Also, when you're mailing packages, like lately, especially after COVID, the mail service can be a little bit hairy. You'll get lost packages all the time, upset customers because of that, and then you'll have to do a bunch of tracking it down and deal with the USPS and the UPS and the DHL and all those people. So the other way to connect with your customer to get them more engaged in your online store would be email marketing. That is one of the most important ways to kind of share with them new product. It's a way that you can show up as if you were doing an event in person. You can give them updates on any pop-up shops that you'll be attending, any sales, any new products, any exciting things that have been going on in the shop, and just like really help them to be a part of the community and the brand that it is that you're trying to create. I like to sign up for other emails for competitor companies or kindred companies that I really admire and look up to, and I find that really helpful to see what kind of emails they send out, sharing about like blog posts or any type of information that is just inspiring to see them connecting with their customer. That's always like helping to keep them engaged and aware of your company, and encourage you to kind of eventually come back to their website to then hopefully make a purchase. So when you're selling online, it's direct to the customer, which is amazing. You don't have to go through any loopholes of, you know, selling wholesale to another retailer and not knowing who your customer is or anything like that. It gives you an opportunity to connect with them. If that's something that you're really interested in, I think it's a fun way to go, to be able to sell online and connect with your customer that way too. There's so many different types of packaging that you could do for your business. It also depends on your budget and price point for how much you're willing to spend, what kind of presentation that you want your customer's experience to be like. For me, it was really important that all my mailing packaging was going to be eco-friendly, sustainable, biodegradable, and so I used enclose most of the time for that. I also liked using uline for boxes. In some cases, Amazon had some great resources as well. For product, especially apothecary things like little vials, I sourced on bulk apothecary as well as on Amazon for smaller quantities. For fabrics and whatnot, I also really loved finding like thrifty stores. Here we have a spot called the Scrap Exchange, and I can find dead stock fabric, as well as looking online for dead stock fabric websites. Etsy was also a really great place to source little jewelry bags or fabric or embroidery applique kind of things that are all handmade by smaller companies, so that was also really fun. The other place to source obviously is trade shows, and that's for larger quantities. Normally you would have to buy the entire roll of fabric if you were to source for fabric at a trade show. So what income should you take for yourself from your business? Oh, that's a tricky one. It's one that's going to vary depending on what kind of business you have, depending on how well you're doing, depending on how much money you need. For the longest time with Moonflower Child, for like the first maybe 3 years, I didn't take any money until I was at a point where I was making consistent money each month with the business. and I wanted to be able to put more time into it. And so I stepped back from my part-time jobs. I'd like slowly also like gone from full-time to part-time to then being like, okay, no more working for anyone else. It's serious Moonflower Child go mode time. And that's when things kind of really started to bloom for me. I had more time to focus. I was really putting my energy into it because it was the way that I was making a living, so I needed to show up and make a living for myself that way. I basically just supplemented what I was making for the preschool, which was I was making $1,300 at the preschool as a full-time teacher, and then eventually started making $1,500 to $1,800 from Moonflower Child each month, which really isn't very much, but for the business to have that much money taken out each month, it was a lot. I started taking that money out, and here we are. That was it. That's the end. I started paying myself, and ever since then, honestly, I haven't gone back to having another job, and I've always been able to kind of sustain paying for myself, and that income has slowly and progressively grown, which has been really amazing. And yeah, it's still room for growth through like what kind of money manifestation I want for myself, to be able to live comfortably and be able to, you know, fly to visit my family in the UK. And these are all things that like are in my mind for the amount of money that I still would like to make. But yeah, I think the slow transition was good. It's scary though, taking the dive, for sure, like making your own money through your own jobs. Like you have to be ready to have the pressure to make the money on the months that you're not doing good, or when things are slow, like after Christmas for retail, you know, everybody's done with their Christmas shopping, they're super broke and they're ready to like not be shopping anymore. Those are the months that were always really difficult, but you need to make ends meet, so you find a way. So accounting and taxes and like money management and keeping up with all that stuff, boy, there's a lot here to get into. I used QuickBooks, the online version, I guess. The desktop version is the one that you can like download, but then you have to manually put each transaction into the QuickBooks. The QuickBooks Online that I was using allows you to connect your bank accounts, and it directly has all the transactions showing up as like uncategorized in your QuickBooks. And then when you're going in weekly or bi-weekly or however often you sit down to do your accounting, you can then categorize each expense, and that allows you to look on your P&L, which is your profit and loss sheet, to analyze where you're making good choices and where you're not making good choices, whether you're in the red or whether you're in the black, how your business is doing. And really, this is what keeps the ship afloat. If you don't have the funds and you're not keeping up with the funds, then none of this is possible. So it's important to know where your business is at financially, and it took me a long time to kind of get there. I have an accountant that I work with who helps me to calculate and reconcile the books at the end of each month, just to make sure that my categorizations and everything that I'm plugging into the QuickBooks is accurate. The other thing to consider when you're traveling to vend is that each state has a different sales tax rate. You'll have to keep up with how much you're selling in each state to be able to pay each state their sales tax. Some of you asked how I stay organized, and Justin and I made a video when we were back in Bermuda about how we stay organized for our YouTube business, and it's all the same for Moonflower Child. I use still the same platform to be able to kind of keep ideas and goals and visions and things for my business all in one place. So if you guys have never used Notion, that's what I use to kind of stay on top of business antics. Photography and marketing, I think this is also really important, especially if you're selling online. A key aspect of what is going to make your customer be like, oh my god, I have to have this. Whether it's a styled photo or just like really good photography of details of like zippers and how it attaches or goes on your body. Sometimes you could be like, I don't really know how this works, so it's too scary looking, I'm just gonna avoid buying it. As far as my photography goes, I actually studied photography a bit at school. My dad was big into photography, and I am somewhat self-taught from then on. I love watching YouTube videos on how to use a camera. I've done a lot of reading. I have also just taken the time to play with the camera and just always have it around. Just like slowly kind of evolved my skills in photography, and also looked to other kindred businesses that had similar styles and presentations of, like, say, jewelry or clothing and what kind of styling they do. Pinterest is also really great for cool ideas of how you can kind of style various products. Take the time to really play with the camera. If you're trying to use a camera like a big DSLR, I would just encourage you to keep trying. Eventually you'll start to understand your camera more, and from then on I would say explore lenses. That for me was when things changed, when I really discovered the power of lenses and the various lenses and how they can kind of create a different ambiance or scene depending on what it is that you're trying to take a photograph of. The other thing that's important is to kind of consider what is your branding, what is the image that you want to create for your brand, and how do you want to present it. And all of that comes in with your marketing and how you put together your photography, the color scheme, the palettes that you like to use, the setting where you take your photos, the type of person that is in your photo. That's super important, especially if it's like for clothing or jewelry or anything like that. On the side of marketing, I guess, is how you're going to find your customer. Obviously, there's so much social media out there now in the world, but that's still a really great way to reach your customer, because there's still billions of people who look at social media every day. So you've got things like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest now. The last question that I have for you today, and I know that this has been a really big video, is how to stay motivated. I think the most important part is that you just really have to love what you do. When you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, and you always want to be doing it, and that gives you the motivation to keep going. As you're going through your growing pains, it can be really difficult. When I was doing a bunch of production, preparing for a big show, and I wasn't able to do much design, but I was making the same thing over and over and over, there were times that just felt really gloomy and like I wasn't doing what I loved because I wasn't in the role that I was wanting to be doing. Justin actually told me of some entrepreneurial advice. It was that each employee that you have will have their different strengths and also weaknesses, and it's important that as you grow you begin to kind of see what those strengths and weaknesses are in your employees, but also yourself. And when I started to realize that I didn't want to be sitting and doing pack and ship all day, or I didn't want to be doing production all day, it kind of helped me to reevaluate my business and kind of restructure it to include more of the things that I wanted to be doing, so that I could then find more enjoyment through what it was that I was doing. But yeah, I just think it's important that you really enjoy what you're doing and that you have fun with it. I don't really know that I have anything else to say. It's been a really fun session to sit here and reminisce Moonflower Child, as well as share some of the upcoming projects that I'll be releasing super soon. I really look forward to reopening the business, and also just a friendly reminder, if you guys are interested in finding out more about the colouring book when it does come out, check out the link down below for Moonflower Child, and you can go and sign up for our email list to get notified when it goes live. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys to be inspired, if you haven't started already, to start your business, and if you're already in the thick of it, that you gained a little bit of some knowledge from someone who's been doing it for like 9 years now. Big shout out to all you guys who are entrepreneurs out there. I hope you enjoyed this tea time, and I hope to catch you next time.